Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today I want to discuss two theories that are crucial to the learning process. These theories are the cognitive load theory and the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. Both of these theories contain elements that are important to the learning process. They are also significant in the educational process. So let's get ready to sit back, relax, turn our listening ears on as I discuss them in more detail. This theory reminds me of pouring a can of pop. What I mean is, if you pour a can of pop into a glass all at once, then the fizz will make the pop overflow out of the glass. But if you pour it in small amounts and allow the fizz to settle, then you can pour the entire can of pop without it having to spill. This concept is what makes this theory effective in the learning process. This theory has three categories of cognitive load, which factor into the process of student learning. They are intrinsic, extraneous, and germane. The intrinsic cognitive load is determined by the number of interacting elements the learning material contains and the level of the individual's prior knowledge. Therefore, it depends on the individual himself. Next, we have the extraneous cognitive load, which is how the material being learned is presented. In other words, it depends on the material. And finally, there is the germane cognitive load. It refers to the actual learning process or the mental aspect of learning the material. The germane cognitive load depends on how the student processes the learning information in their minds. Now, I hope that you have learned or at least have a better understanding of what the cognitive load theory is. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. This theory basically states that student learning becomes more deeper and more sound with words and pictures than just with only words. The cognitive theory of multimedia learning is based on three assumptions. These three assumptions are dual channels, limited capacity, and active processing. And they are depicted with how students learn. In order to learn more about the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, I'm going to go into detail about the three assumptions associated with this theory. The first one is dual channels. Dual channels is the concept of students learning through two processes, visual and audio. Therefore, it means by adding pictures to context, it enhances the learning in the student's mind. Next, there is limited capacity assumption. These three processes are selecting the relevant words and images from the material being learned. 2, organizing the relevant words and images from their selection. And 3, integrating the relevant information with their prior knowledge to be redistributed as motivation and metacognition for the student to process the material they are learning. And there we have it, two theories that are very important in the learning process of students. I know it was a lot of information, but I hope you have a better understanding of what the cognitive load theory and the cognitive theory of multimedia learning are all about. Thank you for joining me in this presentation, and have a good evening. Good night.